Hi folks, welcome to Samish Island. Right now we're headed to a wetland near my house. It's an interesting spot on private property very close to an abandoned great blue heron rookery. This wetland is actually on top of a hill, and it is not listed in the DNR Washington Wetlands of High Conservation Value website. And the Skagit Soil Survey lists the area as Coveland Bow Complex with 0 to 5% slopes. The soil survey says, this map unit is on hills. The native vegetation is mainly conifers and shrubs. Elevation is 10 to 250 feet. The average annual precipitation is about 23 inches. The average annual air temperature is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the average frost-free season is 160 to 210 days. This unit is about 50% Coveland gravelly loam, 0 to 3% slopes, and about 40% bow gravelly loam, 2 to 5% slopes. The components of this unit are so intricately intermingled that it was not practical to map them separately at the scale used. Included in this unit are small areas of Bellingham soils in depressional areas and along drainage ways, and Catla and Clallam soils on knolls. Permeability is slow. Available water capacity is high. Effective rooting depth is limited by a perched water table that is at a depth of 6 to 18 inches from November to May. Runoff is slow, and the hazard of water erosion is slight. This unit is used as woodland, hayland, and pasture land. It is also suited to climatically adapted cultivated crops. The hazard of wind throw and seedling establishment are the main concerns for the production of timber. Reforestation can be accomplished by planting Douglas fir seedlings. If seed trees are present, natural reforestation of cutover areas by red alder occurs periodically. The perched water table reduces root respiration, which results in a low survival rate of seedlings. When openings are made in the canopy, invading brushy plants can prevent the establishment of seedlings on the bow soil and delay the establishment of seedlings on the Coveland soil. Because the rooting depth is restricted by the perched water table and the clay layers, trees frequently are subjected to wind throw. As you approach this wetland through the woods, you'll notice that the trees in the woods are primarily conifers. You have a lot of western red cedar and Douglas fir. As we get towards the wetland, they give way to big leaf maple and cottonwood. Likewise, the brush goes from a much more mixed variety of plants to primarily salmonberry, which you see here with these bright pink flowers. On the bottom of the forest floor, you also go from, again, very brushy with lots of sword fern towards almost entirely sedges. We still have a few sword ferns, and there's also a few bracken-type ferns here, but almost entirely sedges here in the swamp. If you were to look at this area from air, at least in the wintertime, I'm pretty sure you'd be able to see this swamp. In the summertime, when all the deciduous trees are leafed out, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. On a wetland field trip, your class will split into 3 groups, each collecting a different data set. Your group will rotate through the data sets, doing each one during the course of the quarter. The group collecting Dataset 1 will use a Department of Ecology wetland score sheet, an Army Corps delineation form, and the Cowardine class handout. They will complete Ecology's wetland score sheet and measure Cowardine class by percent. The group collecting Dataset 2 will lay out 3 transects 50 meters long with 3 strata to measure wetland vegetation. They will also perform a bird count at 5 stations for 15 minutes each. Make sure you have 50-meter tapes, binoculars, a bird ID book, and a wetland handbook to collect this data. The group collecting Dataset 3 will look for and key amphibian diversity, checking for adults, juveniles, and eggs. Remember not to remove any amphibians from the water, and avoid touching them if at all possible. If it's late enough in the season that the frogs have already hatched out of their eggs, you might have a little bit of trouble finding them visually. If you find yourself in this situation, don't worry. Just stop, stand very still, and listen quietly. After a few minutes, there's a decent chance that the frogs will start chirping and singing. Just sit still and listen. They will also take 3 kick net samples, as well as 2 or more water samples, grabbing the sample from the surface of the wetland. They will need a DO meter, a multi-parameter meter, a thermometer, biota jars, water sample bottles, a sampling form, and a cooler. When you take your water sample, you might need to scrape back some algae or leaves from the site. But when you do that, be careful not to stir up any mud. Take your sample bottle, submerge, scoop up a sample. Try to avoid leaves and mud. Make sure that you also fill your medium-sized sample bottle at the same site. Pull out any leaves or sticks. And that's it. While you're exploring this wetland, keep an eye out for invertebrates and other animals. Since you're at the confluence of multiple habitat types, you never know what you're going to see. Thank you for joining me here on Samish Island. I hope that you and your loved ones are all healthy and happy right now. I really miss you guys, and I'm looking forward to when we can all be back together on campus. So long for now. How deep does it go? It goes deeper than my boots. This could get interesting. If I fall in, make sure that you get a good shot of it.
Okay.
Whoa.